Good morning, YouTube. This is Zales Omega, formerly known as Taraz24, if anyone ever looked on YouTube. But I'm here to bring you today my deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard. Uh, this is my Overlord build. It features every single unit that involves the Overlord, and as far as their support is concerned, I like using the Overlord because of its special abilities. It can retire, it has pressure, and not to mention, it just features a lot of really badass artwork. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so my grade 0 is Red Pulse Draco Kit, basically grade 3 searcher. Okay, basically the deck consists of a lot of grade 3s because, different builds for everybody. Mine particularly focused on the Overlord. And since I can basically recycle, and since strides come into play, well, let's just say the I have enough grade 3s. So, grade 1 support, uh, Seal Dragon Currency, draw power, and also it can help with preparing for Legion. 3, Calamity Tower Wyverns, basically helps with the you're keeping your card advantage and preparing for Legion. 4, Dragon Monk Gojos, Legion, and draw power or hand advantage. It basically helps you set up your hand so that you can prepare for, Legion or getting a grade 3 or getting any unit that's basically getting you, that'll get you from becoming grade stuck. And 4, protect orb dragons. 4 because their special ability. Of course, they only protect the Vanguard. The ability is if one of these is already in the graveyard, you can unflip a damage. So it definitely, since the overlords each have a certain amount of counterblast that you have to use, and sometimes you are going to be counterblast heavy, it's very best to be able to unflip that damage because normally you're going to need it. Grade 2 lineup, I have 3 Dragonic Burnouts. I should have 4, but I've been running with 3, and so far I've seen no problem with running with 3. And of course, its skill, when it's placed on the rear guard, you can return an Overlord back from your graveyard back into your deck. Soul Blast 1, and then you can retire any unit on your opponent's side. Combos very well with Dragonic Neo Flame and other units that are that basically retire. It's so basically, most basically supposed to be able to keep your card advantage over your opponent. The best thing about Kageros is that you have to be able to manage that control. Once you lose control, your opponent's going to be able to swarm over you like white on rice, as they say. So, I have 3 Bellicosity Dragon. I would use Twilight Arrow Dragon. I did have Twilight Arrow Dragon at one point, but the fact that he is Counterblast heavy, and he retired, but the fact that was he was Counterblast heavy. So when it came to my Overlord's ability, I ran out. So I switched back to Bellicosity Dragon. Has pressure, and if it hits, you unflip a damage. And one half of the Legion that's in here is Dragonic Neo Flame. I can't tell you how many times I've actually used Dragonic Neo Flame. Its skill is whenever a unit is retired in the same column that this unit is in, you can counterblast one and retire another, which combos very well with Dragonic Burnout. If you use Dragonic Burnout skill and Bellicos and you retire one unit in the same row that Perdition Dragon Dragonic Neo Flame is in, you will be able to go ahead and counterblast one and retire another one in that same column. Like I said, I've used that combo so many times. I love it. Alright, so here's my grade 3 lineup. And like I said, there's a lot of grade 3s. So here's your numbers. So, first off, the star. Dragonic Overlord, the X. X's skill. Other than the Legion, and then you can search your deck for either Vanguard of him or Dragonic Overlord at the end. And then you can add that copy to your hand. then his skill is if it does not hit, he counterblasts this one, drops a copy of himself, and is able to retire up to 2 rear guards of your opponents. It's the best thing about Dragonic Overlord the X combined with the N is because he's a win-lose situation. Because no matter what, your opponent's going to lose something and you're always going to win. Because no matter what, you're going to be able to retire a rear guard from your opponent. Or if you have the N on the field with your Legion, you'll be able to stand at the cost of his ability. I will go into that next. So I have 4 of them. 3 Dragonic Overlord at the end. Of course, it's not needed to have 4. And of course, the Legion skill, of course, when you Legion, you can add a copy of him or him to your hand. Then here's the main focus is if he hits, he counterblasts his 2, drops a copy of himself, and, well, this copy here, and he will be able to stand the entire Vanguard row. If he does not hit, your opponent loses 2 rear guards by the cost of his ability, which is counterblast 1, and dropping a copy of this unit. I love the fact that this unit has that kind of potential in the deck. And even I went to regionals up in White Plains, New York, and I got to like at least round 4. But of course, I overestimated my card advantage, and that's what cost me the game. And I had to sit back and reevaluate while I've been playing with it. So I have a break ride in here. It's Dragonic Overlord, of course. His skill is when you ride him, he gets power plus 10, and then counterblast 1. When he attacks a rear guard, it does not have to hit or not. He will automatically stand. So that gives you that extra card advantage, that plus. Because the same thing with the N, even though when you do the Legion, once your opponent allows him to hit and you can counterblast, that's that card advantage right there. So you'll lose 1, but you'll also gain 1 because you're going to gain 2 cards because it's a drive check. And this unit particularly, after it attacks a rear guard, you'll still have that extra 10,000 power. And if he's in the soul, this unit will be 13,000. So your Legion's attack would basically be 24,000 rather than the standard 22. I use him because he is pretty good. I cannot say that this unit is bad. Break rides, yes, they slow down the game. I can guarantee it. I'm sorry about that. My keyboard fell. And I must say they are very situational. You can always hold off on your opponent getting them to 3 damage. And of course, if they see this unit, they will try to either push you past the 3 or they will get you to the 4. I say you can always use a break ride in the deck. Even though break rides sometimes slow it down, but sometimes break rides work in the deck. The other break ride that I kind of found out in this deck is Dauntless. I don't know why I added him, but my teammates of Team Restand, we had agreed that, oh, you use Dauntless, hey, you'll be able to do stuff. But then I actually found the flaw. See, Dauntless here causes you to toss 3 cards, even though he gains 10,000 attack points. 10,000, your Vanguard will gain 10,000. This unit, particularly, after the first attack, his skill has to activate, regardless. Because as long as your Vanguard did not restand this turn, this skill can be activated. If he did restand, which is by using someone else's ability, he's useless. So the only thing your Vanguard will have is that 10,000 power. So, and not to mention the 3 cards that you would have to drop. Then let's just say you had this, and then you also Legion with your Vanguard, which is X in the end here. So let's just say you break ride, you get the skill, you attack. Your opponent is basically going to let that first hit happen unless they are automatically at 3 damage, and you will be praying and hoping that you get 2 crits. This hits. Then you have to drop 3 cards. Then you stand. Then what do you have left is you have that attacking pressure. You'll still be dropping another card. So that's basically a loss of 4 cards, but you'll only gain 2. I must say it's a very situational card. At one point, I almost beat my teammate. He plays Metalborgs, and I just needed one more crit to finish the game, and I did not. Of course, that was the only way in which that works. He is very situational and only at 3 damage. And your opponent's at 3 damage. Because once he's at 3 damage, you basically have to push in that first hit. Because if it does not hit in that first hit, unless your opponent has 2 perfect guards, that's also the possibility that they could have 2 perfect guards. Or they'll try and shield the other attack or still try to let the first one go through. Sometimes they'll let the first one go through, but it's always situational with Dauntless. So there's 2 break rides in the deck. And finally, my last grade 3 is Dragonic Overlord the Great. Dragonic Overlord the Great he's a Legion. You can combine with Dragonic Neoflame. He will allow you to, once he attacks rear guard, no matter if it hits or not, this unit will stand at the cost of counterblasting 1 and dropping 2 cards from your hand. I found him I actually learned about him when I was at the tournament, which is very funny. And then I actually abused his ability too much that I lost my entire hand. I tossed too many grade 3s out of my hand, cost me the 4th round tournament, and I realized that was not the way to go. So he's very situational. You always have to watch out for your card advantage, and he will only basically hit as far as lessening on pressure as far as your opponent's rear guard. And then, of course, you want to try and get as much damage or get any additional crits that you can get or get any triggers that you can get from off of hitting that first twin drive. Okay. So, my grade 0s. I have, of course, my 4 heals. I have two of different varieties just because they look pretty. I have 6 crits. 4 of them being Rashka. I mean, her situation is still, if a rear guard is retired, you can get the unit getting power +3 for each rear guard that gets retired in this way during the turn, as long as it's done during the main phase. Normally, my abilities happen during the main phase anyway, so that's what I have as far as them. And then I have Demonic Dragon Mage Apala. So that I have 6 crits. And of course, I have 3 Gatling Claw Dragons. Sometimes I can be able to retire a grade 0 in the beginning of the game. And of course, it goes into the soul. Helps with Calamity Tower Wyvern. Helps with Dragonic Burnout as far as filling up the soul. And of course, retiring a grade 0 that your opponent's going to use to either be a grade 3 searcher or some other unique ability, especially if they keep their triggers on and they have special abilities that go back into the deck. That can also be useful. And finally, I have Red Dragon Seal Dragon Arpeg. I'm sorry, I said Red Dragon. This unit basically goes into the soul, gives one of your Kagero units power +3000. I found this unit very useful because it also helps with the soul gathering as far as using Calamity Tower Wyvern skill. And of course, giving your Vanguard or another unit that extra 3000 push to add pressure towards your opponent and push them into a tough situation of, oh, there's more attack power on that unit than normal. Bam, you have to deal with it. So there's 6 draws, 6 crits, 4 heals. Okay, and finally, my G-Zone. Our G-Zone consists of 2 Divine Dragon Knight Mahmut. Very good unit. I have more. I just put it at 2 because of my grade 4 setup. When he attacks, the attack hits, you retire 1 rear guard on your opponent's side. Doesn't even counterblast. And of course, you get the triple jar check. Okay. Second, I have 2 Flame Emperor Dragon King Root Flare Dragon. His skill, once you're already at Generation Break 1, then you activate his skill, which is turn a face down copy of himself face up. And if your G-Zone is at 2 or more, you roast an entire line, which basically helps, and it can combo very well. You can always use the skill to get rid of your opponent's most pressuring rear guards, because those rear guards, like, say, Extreme Battler Syriza, which is a very, very deadly card if put into the right practice. I say this right here is definitely a staple in any kind of Kagero deck as far as its stridability, and it can retire too at the cost of, just turning off a G blast of him, G copy of him, and then making sure your G unit is at 2 or more. And finally, Dragonic Overlord the Ace. I have Dragonic Overlord the Ace because of the fact that he's the last of the Dragonic Overlords. His skill is when you counterblast 2 and you turn down a copy of himself after the end of the turn until the end of the turn. This unit loses 1 drive check, and he can, after he attacks, it doesn't have to hit or not, he can restand by dropping another card and a Overlord from your hand, stand back up, and this unit gains power plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. So basically, if you really want to make sure that you try and hit or don't hit, but you're putting your opponent into that situation in which they have to either guard this or don't guard it. If they guard it, it's pointless because they'll drop their hand, and this unit will stand back up at an additional power of plus 5,000. He's very situational. You can always use less than this. I did have less than these, but I figured, oh yeah, I like Overlord, so I'll just add them in there. It's just my way of playing the game. So I can use his skill, and especially I use him when I know I can push my opponent to that last point in which they either got to guard, drop that hand, or they're going to have to guard it, because pushing them from 3 to 6 or pushing them from 4 to 6 is definitely very crucial when it comes to late game. And finally, I would like to say one more thing. I have one more situational card, and he's basically what I took out for Dauntless, which is Dragonic Overlord the Rebirth. He's the last Overlord. I like him. He's in there. He's situational. I took him out because, I wanted to try Dauntless for a while. I might put him back in, take Dauntless back out. The fact of the matter is, Dauntless, he can do that, but this unit combines very well with Dragonic Overlord, the Break Ride. Once you ride over him, he gets power plus 10, and his skill is once you can counterblast 1, choose 1 of more of your Kageros, which is all 5 of all your rear guards, lock them, he gets power plus 10, and then his skill is once he attacks Vanguard, if it doesn't have to hit or not, he can drop 2 cards and stand back up. Doesn't lose his twin drive. Combine that with Dragonic Overlord, he will be at 13k, and then with the Break Ride, he would be 33,000 with even his own limit break skill. So when he attacks the rear guard, doesn't hit or not, he stands back up by dropping 1 card, by counterblasting 1, dropping 1 card, and he stands back up. This unit drops 2 cards and stands back up. So it's situational, pushes your opponent into that sense that they are not going to be safe even with this one deadly unit on the field. Especially if you push their card presence down in their hand, they won't know what hit them, because then they won't be able to stop that. And you also get extra drive checks. So you can get 3 drive checks in this one turn just from this unit alone. So that's why I said this unit, he still is an all-star. I just have Dauntless in there. I don't really mind Dauntless, but Dauntless has a way of doing things. But I still have to experience Dauntless a little bit more, get a little bit more handling